Hi everyone, this is Dawn, and it is a driving day today. It is 1:23 p.m. on July the 14th. Is that Bastille Day? I think it is. Anyway, 2021, and I'm headed to my destination for a few months, if all goes well. I can't tell you how happy I am, and I hope to share some videos while I am there. I can feel the relief as I, drive toward my destination. It's a place I've been before. It's actually where the reunion tree is, so that's cool. And I'm very much looking forward to it. It's been a very hard road these last 7 or 8 months. Actually, since I will state specifically for the first time, since October the 10th, 2020. And for me personally, I'm not clear yet if this was a coordinated effort on multiple individuals or if this was just my timeline, my storyline. So anyway, I am recording this as I'm driving because I just got the clear guidance that they wanted me to do that first, potentially to share directly, potentially to re-record and share a video with you. So I'm not exactly sure if this will go up like it is or if I will just gather my thoughts here and re-record. So if I do end up sharing the audio now, I definitely plan to share a video. My intention is to do that before August the 8th, perhaps very soon. Again, it's July 14th, about a month previous to the Lionsgate of 2021, which will be even more potent in some ways than usual. It's always very potent to me and ushers in this sort of period that to me August, September, October, and then leading into November, early November, which is always a heightened time of awareness to me. So let me get to it, First, a brief personal share. Again, it's been incredibly difficult, and I had to, basically kind of go quiet and shift my way of being of service. Was not my first choice, and trust me, I didn't. I had to do that, and there are a lot of things that I feel like could be useful if I shared them, but some things I'm just being shown are not yet. The time's not right for me to share them fully. So I'm not going to share detail, but what I will say is beginning on October 10th, I shared a video that day called The Door to Everything, and shortly thereafter, I just had this huge series of, I would call them just moments of intense clarity about, my journey here as Dawn, and this, in this bodysuit, this incarnation, this journey, in terms of individuals I'm connected to, in terms of my deeper purpose even than I was aware of. And that awareness literally came shortly after I recorded that video, and within minutes of the culmination of this experience, and I actually had gone to get a journal to write down as much as I could the highlights of that. There was I don't even know how to possibly describe what happened, but there was a definite, deliberate, I do think it's more of an attack than I've probably ever experienced, to literally derail everything that had just come through, and actually that had been coming through during 2020 for me. So what occurred was a massive scale kind of attack from multiple fronts, and it took me shortly thereafter, as you may remember, was the U.S. election, and Spirit kind of orchestrated where I was going to be, which was I went through Gettysburg a couple of days, I think the day after the U.S. election, and then on to Philly, where I was for a couple of months. And that was incredibly intentional, and there were some amazing experiences there, and I was still able to be of service through the end of the year. But all of this was going on, these weird attacks. I will say enough to share with you that they, as I mentioned, they came in different ways. Again, I have no idea if there were actual humans orchestrating this. Obviously, humans were participating, but whether they all were in on this or if it was just the general darkness, I don't know. But basically it came from multiple directions. It started as a major through technology, but in a very major way, not just computers shutting down, but an actual orchestrated attack against me. That it seems to me, I have, through this experience, these last, 8 months or so, I have become really clear that often the way this works is the attacks come at your weakest point, your weakest link. And for me, as many of you know, because I've shared about this, I have had historically in this life a really challenging time with my very identity being questioned or being splintered in some way, whether that is mental, physical, psychological, spiritual, even career-wise, all of these various ways, so that what is presented to a group of individuals, one individual, the world, is not truth. In other words, a false identity being put upon me. And of course, this does relate to other layers of myself that are beyond this time and space, but in this time and space as well. And so that began to happen in a huge way, and it started with this massive technology thing that in the beginning, to be honest, I thought, okay, not gonna happen. And I was very determined that, I knew, I didn't know who, but I did know what. And I knew it was an attempt to derail what I was being called to do through the end of the year. And I had some clarity on that for through December anyway. And it was relentless. And it actually has continued that aspect, but not to the same degree. And when I, kind of was able to withstand that as much as I was, because it did weaken me, I will be honest. But there came things from new directions. And this has continued relentlessly through 2 weeks ago, when there were just like these massive things coming from multiple directions that you couldn't make up. It was nuts. It was as if everyone in my life was suddenly programmed with let's attack Dawn. It was very surreal. And so it was, when it was happening, it was incredibly damaging to my spirit, which was already, I was just trying to recapture my strength these last 3 or 4 months. Like I said, I did shift how I was being of service. Information started coming through differently, and I don't think that's any accident. I haven't been able to feel in the way, a few moments, during my long retreats to nature that has returned, but in general, there's been just a sort of somewhat scattered, my ability to hold energetically what I typically have held in service to the earth and in service to our higher mission here, that we're all working to further. My ability was certainly hindered. And also in February and March in particular, it was completely, I just had to do everything I could to stay alive. And I felt, I think that one way, looking back, one way that the darkness was sort of attacking me that I didn't even see until after Easter was this plague of guilt, because I knew how much I was needed as an anchor for specific situation and situations, both that connect to me personally and to, well, and of course to our galactic mission, but also to the collective and our collective ascension and or whatever word you want to use for that, conscious evolution. I can't say that word. And okay, that was, oh yes, that's why that happened. So another thing that began to happen is my mental acuity. This has happened before in my life, about 20 years ago, began to be siphoned off, is the best word that I can use for it. And it was incredibly scary, because it was like, I could barely think. And so that, of course, affected my ability to do whatever work I can to support myself, which has been a historic challenge for whatever reason. And obviously I couldn't hold energetically what I needed to be able to do other spiritual forms of service that I have been accustomed to doing. So it was sort of this convergence of things. And then here at the tail end, a couple weeks ago, it was just surreal. It got really surreal. It was just bizarre. And I don't think that many of the individuals who this came through were very connected intentionally to what was coming through them. I actually think they themselves, in a few circumstances I could see, were quite puzzled, and in other situations they rationalized, and but it was quite irrational. So yes, so that's what's been happening, and it has been quite a challenge. Coming up on a section here, driving, where right lane closed, and there's a sudden merging of traffic here, and I think that that's very much how it felt. It's like my life, it got reduced to this one lane that, for a time literally was do anything you can to maintain your life force, your connection to God, Spirit, which I was able to do, but things got whipped around. It was like I was being whipped around, and now there's a traffic change in traffic patterns, or something happened to the road here, which is exactly what I experienced, because it was as if there was a path, and it was from what occurred in late December. Also, I mentioned in my last video my December videos, and then I realized I actually only shared one of them. The last one I shared was, I believe, around middle of December. I was still in Philadelphia, and I was talking about how beautiful it was on the galactic level, what was unfolding. Shortly thereafter, I was still able, through the end of the year last year, to do some of that work. And I later, subsequently, like not until January or February, but I realized at that point that I had a lot of support that I wasn't even aware of from the other side. And I'm enormously grateful for that. The opposite of love, so being devoid of the light and the life and the love that we are. And so that's the big lie that almost all of us are presented with. It's an illusion. And when we believe the lie, we descend on this ladder of consciousness. And there's a verse in the Bible that says we all fall short of the glory of God, and yet we are meant to be as sons and daughters to share in the peaceable kingdom, the unshakable kingdom, day to day. And my main reason in sharing this with you, just sort of the journey I've been on, is to say that I feel that this sort of thing has occurred in many iterations for many of us, and that we have to go back to the simple, my last video about the invitation, the simple invitation of the moment, and how can I show up here in this day? How can I choose this day how I will align myself to my true creator being, to my the light and the life and the love that I am, that Trinitarian core of our essence, our soul essence? And how can I make certain that I am placing my energy and intention into that soul matrix and cultivating essence from the matrix of soul, rather than being plugged into this false construct that is put before us again and again and again in a myriad of ways. And sometimes, unfortunately, that does come through other humans and through circumstances that we are forced to respond to in this reality. That's what's happened here at the tail end for me the last couple of weeks, for sure, maybe about a month or so. Just relentless number of absurd things that have to do with, I'm actually not going to speak to that directly, but it can be, it can be health care, it can be legal, it can be banking, it can be relationships and our societal constructs of what those should look like and when they are appropriate and how they should be structured. And then there are the other large systems, religion being an obvious one that has at times in my life had its hooks in me. And then also the false beliefs and identities that we are often hooked into. This is what life is. It is at its core light and life and love. We are light and life and love. It's what we're composed of. And the big lie is actually that we ourselves are identified with the opposite. So in other words, we ourselves are identified with darkness and death, decay, decomposition, and finally denial and depression, and the opposite of love, so being devoid of the light and the life and the love that we are. And so that's the big lie that almost all of us are presented with. It's an illusion. And when we believe the lie, we descend on this ladder of consciousness, and we are meant to be as sons and daughters to share in the peaceable kingdom, the unshakable kingdom. So our number one job is to nurture the light and the life and the love we are.